I suppose you would say that you don't get to Kevin De Bruyne's level and be the type of winner he has been over such a long period of time if at this point he didn't think he could still do a good job for a Premier League team.
There's probably nearly every team in the Premier League that would take Kevin De Bruyne. In my eyes, I think he's still one of the best. He'll go down as one of the best midfielders that's ever played in the Premier League. And he's right there. The last 5 or 6 games when they've told him he's not getting a contract, his level's gone to another level. Me and Jay were speaking about it. Can Man City do a U-turn? It's been done many a times. You see players do U-turns. How can you not do a U-turn? Let me tell you, he's available, Kevin De Bruyne. There'll be loads of teams in the Premier League that will want Kevin De Bruyne. He's one of the best to ever grace the pitch at the Etihad and play for Man City. I think he deserves a statue outside that football club. I think he's fantastic. And you see that interview, it looked like it was pure frustration. Yeah. Like he wants to stay at the football club and the football club don't think they're moving on. And I understand you get to a certain age and Kevin De Bruyne has had injuries, but if Kevin De Bruyne is healthy, fit and healthy, you're going to find it very hard to replace him.
Yeah, I feel for him actually because he's been a great player, really has been a top player, and it looks sometimes, me and Clinton have been there probably more than Kevin De Bruyne. That's for sure. That clubs don't want you anymore, and they make a decision. They go, you know what, we think we're going to move on, and he's probably sat there and thought it's been a kick in the teeth because he's probably never had that. Yeah. He's never had that feeling, and every player gets that. In the end, eventually, you get that where it's time to go, and it probably took him a bit by surprise. And he's gone, you know what, I'm not done yet. I'm not finished, and his performances have been fantastic. It's just, they probably look at it and think, is he going to stay fit for what we're paying him? He's on a lot of money. Is he going to stay fit? Yeah. Because, listen, they probably know it. If he's 100% like he's been over the last 4 weeks, of course he's worthy of being at Manchester City. But they need someone who's going to do it for the whole season. And the last couple of seasons, he has picked up injuries, which, have been frustrating for them. So, but I think they might do a U-turn.
Do you think?
As Clinton said, every team in the Premier League would take Kevin De Bruyne. Arsenal should, if he is genuinely going to go, Mikel Arteta knows him, should get straight on the phone and say, come and sign for Arsenal, we'll win the league with you. I'm going to sign a striker, I'm going to have you in midfield, we'll sort it out with you and Odegaard, and they've got Champions League football. I would be straight on the phone, give him whatever he wants, get him in at that team because he's a winner, he knows how to win, and he's still a top player. It makes a huge difference. So it might be a schoolboy error from Man City letting him go.
The point is, Jamie, and it probably leans into the reason that he's not been offered a new contract at Manchester City, is that you said you take him at Arsenal, give him what he wants. That's not realistic, is it, for someone who turns 34 next month?
You'll be getting him for nothing.
But the signing on, I'm sure he'd take a pretty hefty signing on fee.
Yeah, but you're getting him for nothing. Arsenal can pay wages. They over the years, Arsenal have paid big amount of wages. They're, a very rich football club. If you're getting a player of Kevin De Bruyne's stature for a couple of seasons, he's only 33. I know he turns 34, I think, in June or July. If he stays fit and he plays over 60% of the games that you bring him in for, and you manage him and you've got Odegaard and you've got, De Bruyne, and you manage their minutes, don't tell me he can't go and win you a Premier League and be a massive player for your football club. I would pay him 300 grand a week to go and play for Arsenal. 100%. He's a winner. He's one of the best players ever to play in the Premier League. And he's still doing it. He's had 4 weeks, as he said, he's been one of their top performers. Don't tell me he's not still capable of playing at the top level. He is.
How much scope then do you think, Clinton, there is in Premier League clubs to sort of just throw their model out the window? Because particularly under Mikel Arteta, the theme has been buying young players with their whole career ahead of them. Is it on the manager to say, even though he's 34 at the start of the new season, this guy could be the difference, could be the man to help us finally deliver that league title?
Well, I understand when managers say that to certain players, but I'm going to throw in another name who's been fantastic this season, Mohamed Salah. Salah's 33, 34. He just signed a 2-year deal. His numbers are unbelievable. Let me tell you, Kevin De Bruyne has got the same ability as Mohamed Salah. So the only thing with Salah is he stayed fit for the majority of the season. And that is where the question marks and the doubts will be about Kevin De Bruyne. It won't be the doubts of Robert as him as a footballer. Absolutely no chance. Because as Jamie just alluded to, he's one of the best to ever do it in the Premier League. And he's right. If someone like Arsenal signed him and they got a centre-forward wouldn't have to come to feet. Just go in behind, stay in the box. And you know what Kevin De Bruyne is? One of the best balls I've seen in the Premier League where he whips it around the defence. It's a no-brainer for me. If you can get Kevin De Bruyne fit and healthy, any club would sign him, and you give him what you want for 2 years, and he could be the difference of you winning the Premier League. But it's just staying fit.
It really annoys me that this new modern era of how we got to sign these young potential talents to, maybe we sell them for £80 million. I understand the model, I get it, but you can't beat experience. You can't beat world-class talent. All right, you've got to manage him. Well, manage him then. That's your job. That's the whole point of having a world-class player at your football club. And how many times do we see, we bring in this player and potentially... What about Pepe? Do you remember him at Arsenal? Signed him, potentially going to be the best right winger ever. Where's he gone now? There's so many players that you bring in with this potential model, which is a load of garbage. Like the teams that used to win... Man United used to sign the best player every season. You sign the best player in the Premier League every season, they'd win the league again. Well, the best players available for free.
I guess one of the prime examples actually would be that Robin van Persie, who went to Manchester United, didn't get too long out of them, but they got one season where he scored a load of goals and
Man United
won the league.
Arsenal want to win the league. And Kevin De Bruyne is leaving Manchester City, supposedly. He's leaving. Mikel Arteta knows him. He knows what he's about. Kevin De Bruyne knows Arteta. If I was them, I would be straight on the phone, begging him to come and sign for Arsenal.
I guess when you are a sporting director, and I take all of what both of you have just said, but sometimes with money and wages, you're playing the percentages, and the smallest word that you said there is maybe the most important, if you can keep him fit.
Yeah.
He started 17 games this season in the Premier League, 8 substitute appearances. The 2 guys you mentioned there, Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah, have started every Premier League game.
Yeah, that's the difference, and that's when you're going to do it, you're going to weigh it up. And clubs nowadays they like to make money, as Jamie said. So I kind of get that. As your sporting director, you've got to do what's best for the football club. But if you want to win a Premier League, then you've got to do what's best for the football club, and you sign the best players and you give the best players what they want. If you think Kevin De Bruyne, and I think personally, and I can guarantee you everyone in the world will think Kevin De Bruyne goes to any club, he improves that football club. And he don't just improve the football club. If you're a youngster that's coming through, you look up to Kevin De Bruyne and you go and lean on him and ask him for advice. You probably the best person to probably go and ask is someone like a Phil Foden, who probably learned from De Bruyne and David Silva when they were there. It's still good to have experienced players in the building, and a top experienced player like Kevin De Bruyne. No brainer. It'd be sad if he doesn't play in the Premier League, because we miss out on him. We want to see the best players in the Premier League. No brainer for someone to go and sign Kevin De Bruyne. And you know what? He might not even want the 300 grand a week. He's made so much money in his career. Do you know what I mean? And he could probably go and get somewhere. You could give him 200 grand a week. I don't think he's struggling on 200 grand. Do you?
He'd probably get by, yeah. Is there any way... I mean, Arsenal is the one you suggested, but do you see any other club? Do you think in his mind it has to be a club that's playing Champions League football next season?
Yeah. I mean, what would be the point? Otherwise, you might as well go to the MLS. You might as well go somewhere else and have, do what Messi's doing, But for me, it seems to me that he wants to stay in the Premier League. He still feels like he wants to be at the top. Mohamed Salah, all this talk about him going to Saudi, signs a 2-year deal at Liverpool. That's the mentality of these players. The big boys want to stay in the Premier League and produce week in, week out. And I think Kevin De Bruyne is the same. So I think, look, Arsenal's obviously the one that I would look at, because they want to win the Premier League. But anyone would take him. Anyone should try and get hold of him. I'd love him at Tottenham. We can't afford him. But, if you're talking of teams that can afford him, Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool, it could go anywhere.
Just a final word on him, Clinton, that if City aren't to perform a U-turn, it might well even still have worked in their favour, that as we've sort of touched on, it's clearly wound him up enough to maybe get an extra gear in his performance, and it might be just enough his goals and his contribution to get City over the line and get them into the Champions League.
Well, they always say when players are coming to the end of the contract, they up their game to a different level. I'm not saying that's what Kevin De Bruyne is doing, but
what you used to do.
100%. I'm not going to lie, but I wasn't
starting from quite a low level, to be fair.
Starting at a lower level, not that higher level. But what I would say is, as I say, he's always maintain them kind of high levels. The only thing with Kevin De Bruyne is he has to stay fit. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest question mark. And probably that's the only reason why Man City have made that decision, because there's no other reason why you wouldn't give Kevin De Bruyne a new contract. I hope there is a U-turn, and I hope he is playing Premier League football, because we want to see the best players in the Premier League.